Okay, so we want to talk about section 3 of 3.3 of Savage Book, edition 10, which is about loop statement. I broke this section to 4 parts. We're going to talk about the first part right now, and that is basically more about C++ loops. And then we're going to get a little more detail in the other parts. This one is going to be a pretty short one. So we talked about how we want to do the while loop. Let me get my. So we did talk about set, change, set, check, and change. So when you have a while loop, on the top of the loop, before you start your loop, you're going to set a condition, and then you're going to check that condition on the while loop, and then you're going to have whatever you want to do for that many iteration, and then you're going to change that inside the body to be sure that you're not going to stay there forever. So your while loop body has to change the condition, otherwise you're going to stop in there forever. So that's one of the drawback from the while loop, and that's why sometimes we want to stay away from the while loop, because that's one of the loops that can potentially stay there forever. So if you see your program is just not going anywhere, maybe you should check your while. So one of the questions that you're going to ask is, what is it that we want to do and how many times you want to do it? So if my loop is going to go 10 times, do I start setting my condition to 0 and add 1 to it? Or do I start with 10 and deduct 1 from it? Either way is fine. It depends if you want to do something with your condition or the counter. So you might want to ask the user to enter 10 numbers. So you start going into your while, and then instead of 0, you want to say, please enter number 1. So even though your counter is 0, you're going to say, please enter number 1. So you're going to print counter plus 1. So you start from 0, go to 9. So your condition is going to be less than 10. And then you will change it. So it's not going to stay there. And so on. So that would be your body of the loop. What do you want to put it inside? How many times you want to iterate in there? The do while, we talked about it. That's upside down while. And as I said before, from software engineering point of view, I was trained not to use do while in my whole life. So if I go back to 20, 30 years of coding out there, I never used do while. I always used while. All the do whiles I can turn it to the do while. So the idea of the while loop is you check the condition before you do something. The do while is you're going to do something, then you check the condition. So if you look at this, let me move this out of the way. Okay, so for the while, if you have, just like an if statement, if you have only one statement, you do not need any braces. The key always for the while loop is to be sure you don't put the semicolon at the end of the while, because if you put a semicolon right there, then this loop is going to go forever. If you have more than one statement, you want to use braces. So you're going to have braces for more than one statement. Again, no semicolon. If you put the semicolon here, none of these statements is going to be executed. It's going to stay here forever. And because you are not changing anything, it's going to loop forever. Remember, we have to do set, check, change. So it does the checking, but there is no changing. Of course, as you move forward, we can put change in there too. We're going to see that coming up. All right. The do while is we have the word do. We're going to have the statement. We're going to have the while. In this case, you will have a semicolon at the end. And if you have one statement, you do not need the braces. If you have more than one statement, you want to have braces on it. And of course, you want to have to be sure you're not going to forget your semicolon. For do while, if you miss the semicolon, compiler is going to catch it, going to tell you about it because things are happening after that. But for the while, if you put a semicolon, it's just going to run forever. So we've got to be careful with those things. And if you're not comfortable with one statement, maybe you want to put braces for early on. But, you know, to me, it's okay not to have braces. As I told you guys before, I work in a company that they ask me or everybody to put braces no matter what. To remember, when you go to a company to work, they're going to have certain rules that they want to follow for writing code, and that's what you're going to be trained on, and that's what we're going to do. Oh, well, another thing that I want to be sure we talk about is when we do the while loop, one of the things that we can do with the while loop is to verify the input. So this is something that I want you guys to start doing. So when I have an input from the user, I want to verify. We might not be able to verify the data type for it. We're going to do that in chapter 6. Don't worry about it that much. So if I'm asking for a number, I'm assuming that they're going to put a number. If I'm asking for a character or a string, I'm expecting them to do it that way. So looking at the input, first thing first, I want to be sure that I'm going to give a message to the user to enter something. So this message has to be descriptive enough so the user knows. Just because I know it as a developer doesn't mean that the user knows. So if my program opens up and it's blinking, user doesn't know what I'm expecting. We're going to read the input from the user, whatever input we are asking for, and then we're going to create a while loop to check the range for this. If the range is okay, we are not going to do anything. If it's not in the range that I'm looking for, then I'm going to display a message, and then I'm going to repeat this true again. So let me give you an example. I'm going to ask the user, please enter a college student age 16 to 99. I'm expecting a number between 16 to 99. I'm going to read that from the user. If the user puts something outside of the range, I want to catch it. So to be on the safe side, not to mix up my not too many times, what I'm going to do is I'm going to state the correct statement right here. So what is it I'm expecting? I'm expecting a student age greater than or equal 16 and a student age less than 100. Or we could say less than or equal 99. Here I could say greater than 50. So this is what I'm expecting. So I put it right here. And then I add a not after this. So if it's not this condition, then I'm going to do something about it. The De Morgan law says that if you apply this not inside, if you want to put the not inside, you're going to apply the not, but then your and becomes or. And that's what is going to get a little confusing. And when you say a student age, you know, it's just going to be a little confusing. So for the rule of thumb for now, I mean, you can try it, you can do it a different way. I'm going to put the correct statement here, and I'm going to put a not in there. So this is what I'm expecting. And if it's not that, then we're going to do something about it. So my while loop is going to look like this. I'm going to say when this condition is not met, I'm going to display an error message that the user knows that I didn't receive what I was expecting. And then I'm going to repeat the message. So I'm going to stay in this while loop till the user give me a correct answer. Remember, if I use the if statement and the user is crazy enough to give me two bad answer, then I'm going to move on with a bad answer. So the concept is what? If I can catch the wrong input, then I'm not going to go and process this wrong input and give a wrong result. I'm going to catch it early and I'm going to stay there till I get the correct answer. Of course, this is assuming that the user is there and putting in there. We have different ways of getting data. We're going to talk about those later. So as far as the students is not giving me, or the user is not giving me correct age, I'm going to keep asking. I'm going to keep asking till I get the correct age, and then I'm going to get out. Now, in one of the problems, you are supposed to ask a character for day of the week. So the character day of the week, I'm going to tell the user to put M, T, W, F, and S. So those are the characters that was for the problem one that I asked you to do it. So you're going to ask for two characters. You're going to read the first character and the second character. Remember, you can do that. So your user in that problem can potentially put MO as Monday. And so I'm going to read this as true character, and I'm expecting the user to put two characters. Let's stay with that for now. Later on, we can do those things. So I'm reading the first character as M, and I'm reading the second character as O. You can call it anything you want, just for the sake of discussion. This one is a little off. Let me fix it. What happened here? Oops. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording to fix this, and then I come back. Okay, so got this back. Some confusion over there. Sorry about that. So we are on problem one. We are asking for the user to put two characters. That would be MO for Monday and TU for Tuesday and those kind of things. So I'm checking the first character. Right? You can call it anything you want. I'm just putting it in the abbreviation over here to make the code a little shorter for presentation, and you can change it the way you want. So I'm focusing on the first character that has to be M, T, W, F, and S. So I'm reading this, and I'm going to put the condition that is true. So the condition that's true is going to be this condition. And let's say that I want to be a little more particular. Let the user to put the lowercase m. Let's say that's the case if I want to do that. So I'll put the lowercase in there. I might not be that forgiving. I might just stick with the uppercase. If I tell them uppercase, they have to put it uppercase. So if they did not put any of these things, and how do I know it? I put the not over here. So if it's not one of these things, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to give them an error and say, hey, this thing that you put it in there is not in the range that I wanted. I want to be MTWFS, and they're going to read it. If they put it wrong again, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to keep in here till you give me the correct one and move on. So this might be a little hectic to do all of these things. There is another way of doing it. For some reason, this book is covering a string in chapter 8, but I want to touch bases with it. So we're going to do the same thing in a string, but this, if it's confusing you or you're just coming into the class with no coding experience, ignore the next page that I'm talking about. If you have done some programming or you want to challenge yourself a little bit, maybe you want to take a look at it to see how it's going to work. So what I want to talk about, let me clear this out, is another way of doing this using a string. So I can, in a string, there is something called find. strings, again, if you are new to programming, don't worry about this. You don't even have to look at it. You can just stop the recording and move on. But this is something that, so the strings are object. Objects have a dot operator for their functions that's available in there. One of the functions available in a string is called find. Find will return an unsigned integer. Unsigned integers do not have any sign. That means negative doesn't exist in there. So if I use the find, so I'm going to have my object of a string, I'm going to use a dot, and then I'm going to use find. So the find is going to return the position of the character. So if I create a string like this, and I say find, let's the character that I read from the user. If it's M, it's going to return me 0. If it is T, it's going to give me 1, and so on. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So it's going to give me a number of 0 to 9, indicating where it find. If it doesn't find, it's going to give me the highest number possible in that unsigned integer. So unsigned integer in a string is called npos. So npos is going to give me a large number. So it's going to either give to me 0 to 9 in this case, or it's going to give me a large number. Now, I don't like that number. I can do it that way. So if I force this large number to be integer, it's going to give me -1. I'm used to that because that's the way I've been coding. There's nothing wrong with knowing about no pause and deal with it. I'm used to -1. So let's go through the code. Let me clear this and show you how I'm using the dot find. So I'm going to create a string, whatever you want to call it. And this string is going to have all possible characters in it. I'm going to create a character to get the input from the user. I'm going to read that character from the user. Now, I can do my while loop in 2 ways. One is to check to see if my find, this is my find. So this is my object string, this is my find. So if my find doesn't find this character in here, it's going to give me this huge number. I can do it my way of forcing it to be integer. And if it's integer, then I'm checking it for less than 0, which technically I'm looking for -1. So if it is -1 or it's less than 0, that means it didn't find it. Then I can do this. So this is a little, of course, getting used to, but it's a lot less typing or confusion than the one we had in the previous page. So either way is fine with me. I just want to start checking the input before we go on, and that's going to be part of a design document. We're going to go over the design document. Most likely I'm going to create another video by Monday or Tuesday to go over the design document of how we want to do these things. So again, as usual, if you have any question, put it in a DQ. Let's have a discussion in the class. Send me a note, or let's talk in our meeting.